Who were the true rulers of Earth before us, long before concrete cities and digital empires? There was a time when humans were nothing more than frightened wanderers, scanning the shadows for movement. What beasts stalked us through the forests? Why did entire clans vanish without a trace? How did we survive in a world where we were the hunted, not the hunters? In the forgotten pages of history lie creatures so powerful, so terrifying, that even the bravest among early man had no name for them, only fear. These were the predators that shaped our instincts, molded our evolution, and nearly erased our future. But who were they? And why did they disappear? Long before humans carved tools from stone or tamed the flicker of fire, we lived in trembling silence beneath a sky ruled not by gods, but by giants. This was not our world yet. It belonged. Two creatures of immense power, speed, and cunning, apex predators who did not fear man, for they had no reason to. In those days, we were not conquerors. We were meat, prey, and we knew it. Imagine a dense forest, dripping with humidity, where every crack of a twig could mean death. Small bands of early humans, no more than 20 to 30 at a time, moved. With caution, whispering in guttural tones, eyes darting constantly. We had no homes, no fire, no certainty, only survival. Our senses were raw, untrained. We didn't understand the ecosystem. We simply tried not to be part of the food chain. One of our most feared stalkers was Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat. With fangs as long as a man's forearm and muscles coiled like springs, it didn't chase, it ambushed, hidden in tall grass. Or perched on ancient boulders, it would wait until one of us lagged behind. Then, with silent precision, it struck. One swipe was often enough. By the time the rest noticed someone missing, it was too late, and if they did notice, they ran. No rescue attempts, no heroics. The only rule was survival. But Smilodon wasn't the only nightmare. There was Arctidus Simus, the short-faced Bertula, then two grown men, capable of running at nearly 40 miles per hour, and aggressive beyond reason. It didn't stalk quietly like cats. It charged. Camps were obliterated. Bones were shattered. Children vanished in seconds, and yet we learned, slowly, painfully. Our fear became our compass. We began to understand the sounds of the forest, the difference between a harmless rustle and a predator's approach. We learned to huddle close, to keep fire burning once we finally discovered it, to leave offerings of meat far from our dwellings, just to distract the monsters for one more night. This era, the age before memory, was carved into our DNA, shaped our phobias, our reflexes, even our myths. The reason many cultures speak of beasts in the night, demons with claws, or gods of wrath, is because our ancestors lived through them. Not in stories, but in blood, breath, and screams lost. To time we were prey, and the world was merciless. What were they? When did they live? Where did they roam? Why did they target humans? How did we survive? Let's begin with the what. These weren't just animals, they were killing machines honed by evolution. Predators who ruled the land millions of years before humans took their first steps. Creatures like the cave hyena, larger and more aggressive than their African cousins, often hunted in coordinated packs. To them, we were a soft-bodied, slow-moving meal, perfect for dragging back to their bone-littered dens. Then there was Denesicus, a prehistoric crocodile spanning over 30 feet, lurking near riverbanks where early humans sought water. One misstep, and a hunter was pulled under in silence. Bones snapped before a scream could rise. Now, the when roughly between 2 million and 10,000 years ago. During the Pleistocene epoch, humans lived alongside megafauna giant beasts who feared nothing. Homo erectus, Neanderthals, and early Homo sapiens were just tiny threads in this vast and violent ecosystem. Back then, the idea of dominion over nature would have sounded like madness. As for where everywhere, from the dense jungles of Africa to the icy reaches of Eurasia and the sprawling plains of the Americas, predators stalked us. In Europe, it was the cave lion, the largest lion to ever exist. In Asia, gigantic pythons slithered through the forests. In the Americas, it was dire wolves and terror birds towering, beaked assassins built to sprint and kill. But the terrifying question remains, why us? The answer is brutally simple. We were easy targets. Alone, without tools or fire, we had no fangs, no claws, no speed. A soft-skinned biped wandering into the wild was practically offering itself up. Predators didn't need to evolve new tactics to hunt humans. Nature had already made us vulnerable, and how did we survive? By evolving fear into foresight. We started using the environment to our advantage: sharp stones, elevated positions, traps, signals. Eventually, we began working together in tight groups. Fear taught us unity. Unity gave birth to strategy. And slowly, the hunt began to turn the tide. But it would take thousands of years before fire, before language, before memory. There was only running, hiding, and surviving. We were not always at the top of the food chain, and the bones still buried beneath our feet, marked by claws, teeth, and crushing force, carry the proof few might think early humans were only in danger after dark. That the night, with its shadows and silent stalkers, was the only time predators came. But nature doesn't wait for dusk. In the prehistoric world, daylight offered no protection, only false comfort. Picture this, a wide open savanna. The sun is blazing overhead. A group of early Homo sapiens gathering berries, children playing nearby, their guards down. That's when the short-faced bear emerged. Towering over 11 feet tall when standing, it could sprint faster than a human. It didn't ambush. It charged, or imagine Leptofelis, the saber-toothed cat. Unlike its larger relatives, it hunted with stealth even during daylight, leaping from trees or cliffs. Its teeth were not just for show, they were designed to pierce windpipes and end a struggle before it began. Even giant raptors, bird-like predators with talons the size of knives, would swoop down on small children or lone wanderers. They had sharp eyesight that made every movement on the ground visible from the sky. The world wasn't just dangerous, it was relentless. Humans weren't just prey by night. We would prey at every hour, and this constant danger shaped us. It taught us to watch the trees, to listen for silence, to never let children stray, and to build shelters instead of nests. It carved instincts into our DNA: fight, flight, freeze, all forged in these brutal encounters. The fire we eventually learned to wield didn't just give warmth. It gave us the first boundary line predators wouldn't cross. At night, fire kept the monsters at bay, but by day, only our wits and our groups stood between us and extinction. This is why early humans evolved to be social, to form tight-knit communities. Because we were alone, we ate. Together, we were a threat. Even in the light, we were never safe. And that truth haunts our collective memory, buried deep beneath layers of comfort and civilization. But in our bones, in our fears, in our dreams of monsters, the ancient hunt still echoes. Who was the easiest to catch? Who wandered too far? Who didn't yet know fear? The answer lies in the smallest footprints, those of children. In the prehistoric wilderness, children weren't just vulnerable, they were the most desirable prey, small enough to carry, quiet enough to stalk, slow enough to catch, and tragically, they often ventured out just far enough. Fossilized sites reveal chilling truths: tiny bones with puncture marks, claw scrapes, and clean slices through fragile ribs. These weren't natural deaths. These were kills. Predators knew this. Just like wolves test the edge of a herd, dire wolves, cave, lions, and terror birds would patiently watch human camps, waiting for a toddler to stray from their mother. One moment of distraction, one careless game near the tree line, and it was over. The most haunting part: these attacks weren't random. Some predators specialized in this kind of hunting. Saber-toothed cats, for instance, showed signs of ambush preference, choosing the young and small to preserve their energy. Others, like massive eagles with 10-foot wingspans, could snatch infants right out of sight, leaving only silence behind. Mothers began to hold tighter. Fathers started guarding the perimeters. Stories primitive, as they were, warned of monsters in the dark. But these weren't myths. They were warnings based on screams heard, children lost, blood trails found. This is why humans evolved to be protective, paranoid, and close-knit. Why even today we grip a child's hand near a street, glance around in the woods, or feel uneasy when they go too quiet, because once, long ago, the cost of looking away, everything was. What happened when the sun disappeared? Why did early humans fear the stars? What came crawling in the silence? When the fires died down and the world turned black, early humans were no longer the hunters. They became hunted. Night belonged to creatures built for it, silent, patient, and merciless. Massive owls with bone-crushing talons, hyenas that circled for hours, panthers who stalked from the trees with eyes that glowed like fireflies. And worst of all, they saw us before we saw them. Archaeological digs reveal camps arranged in tight circles, surrounded by ash piles, sharpened stakes, and even human bones. Why? Because they weren't just trying to stay warm. They were trying to stay alive. Every rustle in the bushes, every crack of a twig, could mean death. These weren't irrational fears. Skeletons of children and adults show injuries consistent with ambush attacks from behind, from above, from below. Puncture wounds in skulls, rib cages crushed with terrifying force, skulls dragged away from the rest of the body. The kind of injuries that scream one thing: they never saw it coming. To survive, humans adapted. They huddled closer. They posted night watches. They invented fire, not just for warmth, but as a weapon of light. Fire didn't just scare the cold, it scared the things that came with it. And those who didn't light fires, their stories ended in the dark. The fear of the dark that lingers in us today, it's not childish, it's a genetic memory. Because, for hundreds of thousands of years, the night didn't mean rest. It meant waiting for something to take you, and so the tables began to turn, but not with dominance only, with survival stitched into every heartbeat. Imagine a time when a lone human couldn't walk through the tall grass without scanning the horizon. Not for food, but for eyes watching from the shadows. In this last, brutal era of prehistory, humans were not at the top. We were merely part of the food chain, and often not even the scariest part. Saber-toothed cats still prowled in silence. Packs of dire wolves coordinated attacks with terrifying precision. And lurking beneath the canopy of ancient jungles were crocodiles the length of buses, waiting for one wrong step. Even in open plains, giant predatory birds with beaks like axes swooped down to rip flesh and bone. For early humans, fear wasn't paranoia, was intelligence. They adapted because they had to, not with strength or speed, but with memory, mimicry, and myth. Fires weren't just warmth, they were defense. Cave walls weren't art, were survival manuals. And every story whispered around the flames was a data packet passed from one trembling generation to the next. It was these stories, these encoded fears and hard-won tricks that helped us outlive the monsters. But don't mistake victory for dominance. For tens of thousands of years, nature kept us humble. We built tools, and the apex predators evolved too. We grouped into tribes, and they hunted in packs. We lit fires, and they learned to stalk beyond the glow. Survival wasn't a sprint, it was chess in the dark. The only reason we sit here today is because our ancestors were alert enough to hear a rustle, smell a shift in the air, or feel the vibration of post-steps long before the kill. They weren't weak, they were prey, and they survived anyway. That is not a weakness, that is genius carved by fear. So the next time you walk into a forest or stare into the ocean's depths, remember, we were never supposed to make it this far, and the predators, they haven't vanished. They've just changed form. If this journey into our forgotten past gripped your imagination, don't let it end here. Subscribe now and join us as we unravel more buried truths, lost beasts, and untold chapters of human survival. Every week, we reveal the stories that shaped who we are and remind us who we were. Tap that subscribe button and keep the fire alive.